So, good evening and welcome to day 2 of District Assembly, when tonight we hear from past District Governor and our current Community and Vocation Chair, Mary Bradley, and our Environment Lead, John Blows. And the theme for tonight is fostering harmony between our community and the environment. But before I hand over to our speakers, I've just got a short PowerPoint. This is where we hope it works. And I will just like to recap on Saturday, when we heard from incoming Rotary International President, Gordon McAnally, on his theme for the year, which is create hope in the world, in our communities and also in ourselves, through creating peace and well-being. And he reminded us that peace is the soil where hope takes root. We also heard from our past District Governor and Public Image Lead, Velma Robinson, and Rotary Great Britain and Ireland Public Image Lead, Phil Dyer, on promoting our work through engaging storytelling and the correct brand use. And they also asked us to think about how we share the true impact of our work, and discussed how not everyone has a story to tell, but as a team and as a group, we have lots of stories to share. And then on Wednesday, that's tomorrow night, it's myself and Rotarian Peter Brooks, and we're going to talk to you about dementia awareness, and we've got some fabulous guests joining us then. And then on Monday, the 15th of May, is our foundation evening, and the theme is creating lasting change through the Rotary Foundation. But just before I move on to our speakers for tonight, I just wanted to share with you our Rotary vision, and it's a vision that Velma and Phil talked about on Saturday. Together, we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. And within that, there are the 4 headline words: together, people create change. And these 4 words lead me perfectly into introducing our speakers for tonight. So I will stop screen sharing, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you Mary Bradley and John Blows. Mary, I'll hand the floor to yourself.
Thank you very much, Pam, and hello everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be here tonight and to talk to you about fostering harmony between the communities and the environment. I've passed my slides to Malcolm, and he's going to click them on for me because we're slightly unstable here with the internet. So I hope that's okay with everybody. So sit back for 3 presentations on what we can do to improve the lives of our communities. Okay, thank you very much, Val. Come on to the next slide, please. Right, the first thing, if we're fostering harmony between the communities and the environment, why Rotary? Why Rotarians? And the excellent time we had on Saturday really brought that home to me. It's because we are people of action. We've had that slogan for a long time now, but how true it is. Jennifer Jones reminds us that we're more than each club, we are a movement. And certainly nobody can be in any doubt that both working in the communities and the environment are both bigger movements than even Rotary is. Pam's already reminded us that together people create change, which are the key words in this. And we know that we have a particular role in doing that, and have in the past and in the future will create much change in our communities. Pam's theme for the year is create hope in the world. And you will see from the talk I'm going to on resilience in a minute, how important that is at the moment. Many years ago as well, we had peace as a theme, where we all learned that peace was far more than stopping a war. Peace was inner peace, peace in our communities, and doing the right thing. And so therefore, there is a lovely link between peace, soil, and the environment. So without further ado, next slide, Malcolm, please. Uh, so what does experience tells us when we think about our clubs? We all know that projects well planned and then delivered are really good, and they are the basis with which we all work with. Projects are so important in our clubs, and each year when it gets to assembly time, we think about what we're going to do for the next year. So this talk is very timely. And if we promote those projects well through all the media channels there are now, and there are many, we know that that increases the interest in Rotary, interest in what we're doing. And people notice us, and hopefully people become involved. So projects promoted well, people, really good news for all of Rotary. Next slide, please. Then we have them thinking with our clubs. In many clubs now, they work with just themes. They have stopped working in what I call the silos. So we still need in our clubs our lead people in various places, if nothing more than to collect the information and to make sure that each area is championed. But how many times do we all go to youth competitions when there isn't even a membership leaflet or anything else out? The youth do service like Ryla, Ripen, International, all the other things we do with youth. But we forget that we should have some sort of alumni so that we can keep in contact with them. But we are very good when it comes to youth competitions in finding that vocational element and invite the local chef in, probably to cook the cooking contest or whatever. We know about community service, and we find that often in clubs there's very keen people who do the same events each year. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes thinking about how we might expand those and grow them, and particularly to involve that vocational bit. I think Rotary has stopped thinking about vocation. One time, we used to have members in categories. Maybe life has changed on, and maybe the vocational elements now are things that we never had before that we need to think about bringing into our clubs. I have some lovely stories. We're supposed to encourage do storytelling, but I've got some lovely stories about people who joined Rotary on the back of the vocation. I know a club that would have sunk if it hadn't gone out and sought a treasurer from the local accountancy firms. A club where they used young people to do their IT stuff and so on. So let's think about vocation in a different way. We're very good at international projects, and sometimes the international projects are just about fundraising, as in, say, Shelterbox, which I need to thank everybody for the hard work they did, but also for projects where many clubs get together and maybe do something in India or Nepal or wherever. And often it's things people have seen in real life on holidays or whatever. And we all know that we're supported by all the public image stuff, by the membership work, and by, of course, importantly, foundation. And the foundation is so important to us as our charity. Next slide, please. But Rotary doesn't think like that, does it? Rotary doesn't think in those areas. Rotary thinks in areas of focus. And we're all aware of the areas of focus that we have. And maybe just in our communities and in our clubs, we could think more about thinking about areas of focus rather than thinking about just individual projects, and come together so that everybody in the club can be involved. And that's why John later on is going to pick up on the environment. But of course, there's many we do, and often in the clubs, stuff around basic education and literacy is really taken on board by people who support reading in schools, do the mentoring, interviewing, and all sorts. If we could get that into a bundle and recognise the link to child health and the well-being that we have in the future, that would be absolutely terrific. So maybe thinking of themes and building up our project around a theme might help us involve everybody in our clubs. The next slide, please. So Rotary this year is promoting humanities. I'm not sure humanities is a very good word, but what humanities is aimed to do is to bring everything that we do together into one sort of joined up project. And in doing that, we need to think about where our community does need our support. And I think that's also a challenge. I'm sure my club's no different to anybody else's, that we actually like doing the same things year in, year on. So actually, when we come to think of something new, it can be quite challenging because we've always got to think about the impact we have on our current commitment. One of the things people say to me is that it's hard to find projects that all club members can support. We know in our clubs, we have people who are busy, we have people who are older, we have people who may now have some health issues, people with different skills. So actually, if we think of a theme rather than in silo thinking, we could probably think of a project that everybody in the club can get behind. Going back to vocational work, we need sometimes to get expertise and support in order to deliver a project that we haven't thought about, particularly if it's joined up. And I'll give you an example later on where in a club that took on a big project, they had to get some real expertise in, and that has actually now expanded their club considerably. We thought about who will lead it. If we've got a project that's different, maybe it needs project managing, another vocational job, something people have got experience of, but being a little bit more organised. What resources will we need? Well, that's challenging. How about a foundation district grant or other resources that we might be able to find, whether that's people in kind or actually a grant. And clubs are getting so much better at applying for grants now that it's really broadened the horizons of what we can do. And the other big thing I think about when we think about thematic projects, is it time limited? Is this something we're just going to do? Maybe like build a sensory garden in a school, which I know one club's been involved in. Or is it an ongoing project, something like, as you'll talk about tomorrow, dementia cafes, which could be a project that could go on for as long as we have the resources to do it. So thinking through, having a thematic approach and thinking it through and bringing everything together is not probably as simple as just planning to do the thing we've always done. But if we always do what we did, we'll always get what, and so on. You know the saying as well as I do. But actually, thinking in this way can bring new life, a new energy. Next slide, please. So, a whole club approach. Right, can be quite challenging. So do you set up a project group and have it as one theme, or do you delegate aspects to each committee? If your committee structure is strong, then maybe that's the way to go, but it depends on your club and how you still work. How do you do something about avoidance of engagement? That was really interesting because some people only like doing the one thing they joined Rotary to do. And it's about trying to link that in, I think, and trying to make this feel as if it's something for everybody. And when in our area, we started a project that had two clubs together. and we had one club all for it, but only 50% of the other club all for it. And that caused us a few problems, but not anymore. Not anymore. And once you've got success and it's rolling, people see the benefit. I think sometimes thematic work requires partnership working, and that might be working with other groups, other clubs. It may even be outside other charities, other people, and that's not always what Rotarians feel they joined up for, or they may be doing so much of that anyway. This is just yet another partnership to get involved in. But actually, partnership work is really great, really expands the reach of Rotary no end, and it is good. And if you see the newsletter that we've got out at the moment, you will see there's some national partnerships that you can join, things like the Mental Health Partnership and so on, which are really good. There's even one on modern day slavery, and you can join that and really feel joined up. So this isn't only local, it can be much bigger. And the need and concepts change, and we need to change with it. And that's been said all the time through Rotary. But I would caution this, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because clearly babies can grow. And if you've got some good project that just needs a bit of freshening or a different thing, think about it. Could you, instead of just doing that project, involve the youth in it? Could you involve environment? Could you do something with international with it? How could you bring it together? And how could it sustain your club to be really increase the membership, increase your public image and everything else? So good practice in each club should be cherished and grown. And this is just a suggestion that we come together and think differently about what we do. So the next slide, please. So tonight, we're going to keep on the thematic approach of fostering harmony between our communities and the environment. We're going to talk about, John's going to talk actually at the end about environment and increasing interest internationally, locally, and intergenerationally about the environment and environment processes. Talk about resilience, about that opening new doors, building on delivery that we already do. And then the Harbour project, which I'm going to give as an example of a thematic project, which has really regenerated a whole load of interest. So that's the first part of the introduction to what we're going to do this evening. So I'm now going to ask Malcolm to change the slides over onto resilience. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about resilience. Resilience is something which has been a word around for a long time. And a while ago, we were all asked to have resilience leads in our club, but maybe we haven't always done that because we haven't quite understood the scope of resilience now. This is often our picture of resilience and how we think about resilience. It's sort of in the floods, and all of those of us who live near Cockermouth and Carlisle and along, where was it in Lancashire? Let me think, I can't remember now, but all along that corridor there, I know people will have experienced that emergency coming together and how everybody in the community sort of work together hard to do that. And from that can build all the relationships, neighbourness and everything else. But it's also led to so much more. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the current thinking about resilience, both in Cumbria and Lancashire. Now, Cumbria and Lancashire lead this slightly differently on a county footprint. But for us Rotarians, I think there's a lot we can think about and do it locally. And also, it's very much about what we currently do. We should celebrate what we do. And again, there's some really good stories here. So next slide, please. Okay, so resilience is about creating hope in the world, which is our theme for this year. Because resilience always responds to community need. Oops, it's moved on one. Um, it builds capacity in people and their communities. And that's really important because the capacity of the community is often only as good as the people within it. The valued and reliable partnerships come out of resilience working together is really important. I know that from doing some of the flood work, but equally you will have all experienced that when you've stood on the various COVID vaccination lines, about how many people come together to support that. And we've also seen it quite often in wrap up. We respond to humanitarian disasters and emergencies in all the water boxes, the aqua boxes, the shelter boxes, everything else we do, clothes collection. I mean, Rotarians just do so much. I've got a bag of glasses that currently I'm collecting and so on. We are champions for social justice as well. And we do an awful lot of work around there. And one of the big bits of work Rotary is leading on at the moment is the work around the refugee crisis and the asylum seekers, but also about modern day slavery as well, which is a big problem in all our communities wherever we are. But the other thing, by creating hope in the world, we recognise the importance of fellowship. Not only do we recognise the importance of fellowship in our own clubs, but we recognise that around the world as well. And one of the things that many of the charities that that Rotary supports, including things like Shelterbox, is that they try and keep communities together. And that is so important for moving forward and to making a community become resilient again. Next slide, please. I've talked a little bit about stepping up to the community, and these are just some of the stuff that I actually discovered that we're doing in our clubs at the moment. We're certainly doing a lot of the work around floods and humanities disasters, and I know that in the areas where we've got problems, and potential problems, people still step up to that. We were fantastic in the COVID crisis as Rotarians. We did vaccination centres, we did shopping, we did friending. In fact, I personally took on 4 people to befriend, and I've still got 1 left that I'm still supporting. And I know that, so many more of you did so much more in that at that time. The work on refugees and asylum seekers that continues. It's so difficult, isn't it? Because this is such a political issue. But on the ground, there is a need. And I know how generous we've been in collecting clothes, belongings, toys, whatever's needed in order to support people and also to help them rebuild their lives. And we have had a couple of awards in this district, national awards, for the work that has been done around asylum seekers. That's fantastic. Many Rotary clubs support the food bank and the community fridges and all the other food distribution and collection that there is. And importantly, a lot of Rotarians get involved in the credit unions as both day-to-day working in them, but also as trustees. And credit unions are increasingly important because they are the way we stop people in the communities having to go to the street lenders. And once you have a street lender, that's a really downward spiral. We do the food responses as well in different ways. I know of Rotary clubs that cook food, share it, and particularly where you've got a community with different used to different food, the way it's cooked and things, that is really important. And the current winter, we've had warm spots, and I have seen Rotarians working in a lot of the warm spots either making the food, pouring the coffee, or doing the arts and crafts or whatever. And I even saw one Rotarian dancing away with one of the people in the warm spots. That was just lovely to see. Say we do disaster appeals, but we also do fundraising to support others. And although, you know, I hate shaking a tin, um, fundraising in the various ways we do it is really important, because often our little bit of money, both locally and international, goes a long way. And of course, our seasonal events, if we didn't do Santa Claus in a lot of places or coordinate it, Santa wouldn't happen, and in the way it does. We also do fireworks. And how many fireworks events have we taken on because other people could no longer do it? And there are many other examples of season events that we do. And those of us who live near the Scottish border obviously get involved in things like Burns Night. Next slide, please. So we build the capacity of people. But how do we do this? Well, I'm sure tomorrow night you're going to hear about capacity building around carers and people with dementia, which is one of the many, many long-term conditions that we have in this country. And supporting the carers who look after those people is as important as supporting the people themselves. And just remember how many young people have mental health issues at the moment that need mentoring and supporting. We also build capacity in young people. Rota Kids, Interact, Ryla, Ripen, all the mentoring, reading and interviewing, everything else we do for kids, including the competitions, builds that capacity in young people. And as young people are our future, we do support that. And I think sometimes, you know, it's forgotten just how important some of this stuff is. We've sort of declined a bit with Ryder and Ripen, possibly in the last few years. But we also have Calvert as well, which I haven't put on here. But Calvert also is a way to build capacity in people with a variety of disabilities. Recently, over the last few years, we've started to do growing schemes and tried to increase the capacity of people to grow their own food and to appreciate food more. There's the fabulous Incredible Edibles scheme in Brampton and Longtown. I know there's just one in Cockermouth. I know there's another one about to come about. But Rotarians do all sorts of things related to growing schemes, the neighbourhood gardens, supporting the various mental health charities, as they do in Kendal, and all around I can see examples. We do that. The other things we do as well is we increase the capacity of wellbeing by having various gardening boxes, uh, which Ian encouraged us to theme purple. But I recall sweeping a station with the lovely train on it that was full of flowers. There are so many times in which we do this. I also know that a lot of the clubs have actually developed gardening space in schools, which helps us with that whole link into environmental projects, bees, mini beasts, and so much more. One of the things we're really good at is litter picking. I think most Rotarians could get a degree in litter picking if we really tried. We do a bit of weeding as well. River cleaning, of course, is important, and our partnership with the Rivers Trust has taken that forward. And balsam bashing, balsam bashing. Oh, how much balsam is there about? I don't know. It just seems to be everywhere. Very pretty, but very invasive. And then we have projects which build capacity. I think probably I love the idea of the beach wheelchairs, where you've got people who've come together to support a project, not necessarily Rotarians, but other people have come together building their own volunteering capacity, but taking people out who go onto the beach who wouldn't normally be able to. And behind that, you've got all the repair, maintenance, and everything else. We do many projects like that where we absolutely help people. I know my own club had a wheelchair for a time that we could hire out, and how useful that was. But we could do lots of things where we actually compete that capacity within people and within our communities. Thank you, Malcolm. Right, stepping up in partnership. Well, we do this. We take part in resilience training and exercises. I'm sure many of you have taken part in pretend train crashes and other things. I remember I had a pneumothorax, that was very noisy. Our winter warmth and our fantastic wrap-up scheme are all the sorts of things we have done in partnership with other people, often partnership just to people who loan us space or buildings, people to help us dispose of excess products. Lots of different partnerships out there. I've talked about the COVID initiatives. We provide quite a lot of community transport between us. Often we're the people who give people lifts to hospital, out to various things, bring people to our clubs, take people on treats, drive the community minibus sometimes. All sorts of ways we do that. We get involved in the community resilience plans, the emergency planning. Every community should have a resilience plan, and every Rotary Club was asked to contribute to that some time ago, so that when the plan had to go into action, for whatever reason that was, they knew what the Rotary Club would do, whether they would form the admin, driving, shifting cars, whatever it is. That it's really good to be part of that, so that people know where you are, who's the phone number to ring, and what it is you can actually do. We do many international projects in partnership that increase resilience. I was thinking of all the water projects we do, the bees projects, the Mary's Meals type approaches, and all the things we do around shelter and just addressing disasters. And then, of course, there's the Rotarians who deliver for all the other agencies, charities and faiths we have. I don't think I've ever met a Rotarian who wasn't also doing something for somebody else. It's in our nature. Thank you, Malcolm. And with it being in our nature, we shouldn't forget about resilience in ourselves. Are your clubs resilient? Can they change, be responsive? Are they able to function effectively? There's lots of help out there if you want to rethink anything in that line. Are our members being resilient? When I went on the Rotary GB&I training for this year, they made a whole thing about resiliences around dignity, diversity, and just doing things. So that's really important to enable people to be resilient within themselves. Resilience is also about us working together locally and internationally. And in district resilience, we have a whole issue about recruiting to district posts. I never know why. It's a terrific part of Rotary, and you get to see what everybody else is doing. It's fabulous being at district level. So please come on, share your knowledge, your skills, and your experience, because, hey, you know, every one of us, every team needs something. And really, you know, as an ex-DG, I'd rather be supporting than leading. Our fellowship and our Rotary stepping up ourselves. Fellowship is plus, plus, plus. Often people say it's old-fashioned word, but fellowship is more than friendship, or friendship is more than fellowship, whichever way you like to look at it. But I know how important fellowship is. And, you know, many, many times the Fellowship of Rotary has supported me and others through very difficult times. And don't forget the kindness card. Every Rotarian should have a card with the kindness symbols on it. And if you haven't got one, please get one. Thank you. Thanks, Malcolm. Right, just to remind you, we do have Rotary leaders who can help us and support the clubs in this area. So Brian Mitchell-Hill, who's in the Cockermouth Club, he's the lead for resilience, and he does a lot of work both locally and Cumbria-wide. Malcolm Watkins, who is in the Camford Club. He's the Lancashire Resilience lead and has worked on this for many, many years and really has a good understanding. But resilience is about joined up Rotary. So anybody that is taking a lead role at district level, that's connected into the humanities, thematic themes, who's in foundation membership or in public image, can help and make sure that you make the most of your resilience, both in your club and to your communities. Thank you. Right, so the last bit for me before I hand over to John and in environment was to demonstrate you. This was Pam, the district incoming district governor's request really that we showed you this project. What Pam didn't know was it was my own club. So and the Whitehaven Club. So I make no apologies for that, but I hope this will demonstrate how you can bring everything together, and this is when 2 and 2 really does make 10. So bear with me. So this is the harbour project, started about 18 months ago. It involves the 2 clubs in Whitehaven, Whitehaven Castle and Rotary Club of Whitehaven. And we did this in partnership with the Harbour Commissioners. The next slide, please. Where did this project started from? Well, it didn't start from the harbour. It started from us having a new younger member who was 48, joined Rotary because she liked what she's seen, came, and although we were a busy club, we're very small numbers, very 12 of us, but we do lots and lots of projects, very active. But she said, I want more from Rotary than this, or I'll leave. So we said, well, what is it you'd like to do? So she said, well, she was walking on the harbour, it looked very unkempt. So she said, is there something we could do around the harbour? So we thought, who owns the harbour? And we discovered the Harbour Commissioners are a not-for-profit organisation who get only funding from their actual offer. So things like where the boats are, the yachts and things, or for people sailing in and out the harbour. But otherwise, they raise money as a charity and work sort of as a not-for-profit organisation. So we talked to them a little bit about whether there was a project involved, and thought, well, this was an example where we really needed vocational skills because it was way out of our kind of thinking. So we talked to Whitehaven Club. We recognised that we were both declining clubs in need of focus and boost. Whitehaven Rotary was also nearing its centenary, which actually is in July this year. And we thought it would be lovely for them to have something to celebrate for their centenary. And as I said, we were a small club with few members, but very active. But both clubs shared this real frustration that we have the major industry of the nuclear industry locally, nuclear decommissioning, a huge supply chain. And we never got any new members from them, even though quite often the people who owned the various companies were from America and Rotarians themselves, but we still couldn't get them interested. And we'd had several goes at doing a road track, but without success. So that really wasn't a real issue for us. The other thing was that we worked out that there were 15,000 people with who could have a day off to do social impact as volunteers. So that's 15,000 days of voluntary work in our area. A quick sort of survey showed us that less than a quarter of the people actually picked those days up. And we thought that was pretty horrific to think of all those days that could help the community that weren't being used. The next slide, please. So what did we do? Well, we project managed it. Lynn, who was the young member who wanted to do something, her day job was a project manager. So we said, here, you project manage it, you know what you're doing. And we wanted to make sure that everybody had a role, but we knew we got skeptics, particularly in the Whitehaven Club, I have to say. We scoped the projects that we could possibly do on the harbour, a walk round, a look with our eyes sort of thing. So we decided that we should focus on the usual Rotary things. So we focused on litter picking, and that made a huge difference. Then we decided we wanted some planters. We could do a bit of painting, and we could do some promoting of Rotary at the same time. So Lynn organised us so that everybody had a role. So we had the finance and resources. So that was in charge of fundraising and various other things. Now, that's really important because that resources group grew a craft group that of people who like doing crafts, weren't Rotarians, but made us stuff that we could sell on our stalls and things. So already we've expanded our reach into the community, doing something very different. And we soon found ways of raising other money through using other people. And we did bids as well, which we hadn't particularly ever done before as a group. We wanted to increase our public image and we wanted to increase our membership. So we actually called this public image and support rather than membership, because we recognised we might not get everybody into Rotary, but hey ho, if we could increase our friends even, that would improve us and our image would improve. Obviously, there was the project delivery stuff itself, the actual litter pitting with all the rotors, the advertising, getting it all together. And we had that. And then there was another little group of people who thought about what was needed on the harbour, but we just couldn't do. For instance, there were some cannons that needed big machinery to lift them. Well, you know, even all the Rotarians together couldn't have lifted the cannons. So obviously there's a whole load of stuff that needed to be thought about. Otherwise, our project wouldn't be complete. Next one. As I say, we talked about finances and resources. So one of the things we have done is we've actually built up a lot of donations of people who were quite happy to support us with projects and also money that we'd never even thought about before. So that's been really useful. Next slide, please. The public image and membership has been really interesting. Out of the public image team, they appointed a social media champion who many people will now have seen Ellie Day's posts, but that made a huge difference to us and really increased our profile. We agreed a logo and approach between us so that we knew that what we were doing. We updated both our websites so we had the same message on them about the project and keep that going. We developed a joint insert for the A4 leaflet that is Rotary for Me, and we put that inside because we thought we couldn't improve on the Is Rotary for Me, but we wanted to make it locally, so we did a new insert. We encouraged everybody to engage with the project that we could sign, and to date we have involved friends, and we now have both clubs have more formal friends within the clubs. A community core was established of young people, but they actually have now gone off and called themselves the Ship Shapers, and they have registered as their own charity, and they're a group of young mums and dads who bring their kids along to the harbour, and they do a lot of things like weeding and all sorts of bits and pieces, and are responsible for some of the paintings and so on down there. So that has been really, really interesting. And they have managed to coordinate all 80 shops together and be quite supportive. So they're not road tractors, unfortunately, but they're ship shapers doing a great job. The craft group I've already talked about. We involved youth offending because they were short of really good opportunities that were a bit different for youth offending. And we've engaged the passers-by. And the new thing we've done in the last 3 weeks is we've managed to get all the Sellafield nuclear family into talking about how they may use their social responsibility days. We've had a meeting now with the coordinator of that, and a lot of the companies now will help us do the bigger projects, the things we couldn't do, by using their social responsibility days and also the company resources. Big step forward. And we have one new member in each club that has joined because of this project. But the interest from passers-by has just been phenomenal. And the big thing it has also done is, I mean, I was sat in Tesco's Friday and Saturday doing a collection for water boxes. And because people have seen us out there, they come and donate now in a way that they probably didn't before for routine. And people have always donated for big disasters, but for routine collection, we've got a noticeable increase in that. So that's a good spin-off. So I'd like to just show you what we've done now, just quickly, and then I'll hand over to John. So that's the last slide. Is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. That's Tony. Oh, that's Tony Tate. That's the centenary bench that Rotary Club of Whitehaven has bought to commemorate its centenary as part of the project, as part of the harbour project. Next slide. This was a big banner we were able to put up on one of the lampposts to tell people what Rotary did. You'll see we're using the areas of focus and the Purple for Polio campaign as part of the People in Action. And that is now up there all the time, which is great. Next slide. This is our first set up Men in Sheds this was to start building our planters. So we raised the money for the wood, and then the guys got together and started to build them. Next slide. This is one of our planters. For those that don't like tabards, we have to, the rules on the harbour are that you will have to wear the gear. So you can see we're busy planting up the planters. Next slide. Yeah, that was that was one of our purple ones that got a bit of yellow in with it. Next one. This was having fun with the DG. We did this as a big publicity campaign, and you will see that Ian bought us a purple buddleia, which is now growing well, not in our box, but just behind it. Next slide. This was having an event on the harbour where we could put the stuff up and celebrate what we've been doing. Next slide. Obviously, we tried to keep this something going on all year. So this was October, November, planting the crocuses. And you can see the artwork on the back that the ship shapers have done. Next slide. And that's them growing and having that plaque now means that people can relate. We had the plaques before, but I don't think people really related to what we were doing before. Next slide. Lighting up the candlestick. Because we had a relationship with the harbour commissioners, we get the harbour lit up twice a year in purple, once for the October event, once for the February event. So that's really fantastic. And that's what the harbour looks like when it's all purple. So absolutely lovely. This is when we decided to tackle the lamppost. And this is one of our new members who decided to join us and have a bit of fun. Next slide. And that's what it looks like when we're finished. We have purple lampposts. And the next slide. But the girls went one better. they actually did their lamppost, then put the Rotary crocus sign at the top to explain to people why it was purple. And the next slide. This is painting the bollards. We turned our bollards from very rusty, where Ronnie is at the back, to undercoated them, then painted them black. And the next slide. This is the fence, doing the fence. As you can see here, people involved. And the next slide. Now, this was interesting. Tony Tate, who was sat on the seat right at the beginning, comes from Rhodesia. Well, when he lived in Rhodesia, it was Rhodesia. And he has friends that are in South Africa. And they took the idea of the project back to South Africa. When I was on holiday in South Africa last year, this is what the Rotary Club in that seaside town has done with their bollards. And next slide. And you can see they're going around the corner. Now, I didn't have a chance to speak to them, but apparently every one of these bollards represents something that club has done, both locally and internationally. The first one actually had Wales on it, I remember that. So yeah, so not only did we get everything joined up, we got membership, PI, our working with youth, a community project, vocational input, and everything else went together to actually build capacity in our community and also help the environment. So I hope that's been interesting and inspiring. So now I'll hand over to John, and John will now talk us through everything to do with the environment. So I'll just clock out.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I'll just screen share if I may, and I can use my pointer if that's all right. I'm assuming you can now see. We okay with that? Mary, can you see it?
Yeah, no, not yet.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'd like to spend no more than 15 minutes, although I shouldn't have done that. No more than 15 minutes. And this is a summary of the talks I've been giving when I've been going visiting various clubs in the area. So it is about protecting the environment and the human race, and it's by working together. So it's interesting that as the population has increased, and it's 8 billion at the moment, it relates directly to the amount of carbon emissions. And we need to reduce the amount of fossil fuel carbon that's going to atmosphere. And it's interestingly, if you were to relate to the amount of emissions of CO2 to atmosphere, you can see from the 1900s, in fact, all these various things that happened and how it was affected. And the greatest interest, motor cars off the roads during COVID. Wow, didn't it come down? So that demonstrated actually that it was cars off the road, and you can reduce the emissions. So we just need to deal with it. And what's already been done, you all need to know this because your grandchildren are going to ask you about it. In fact, a friend of mine pointed to his 5-year-old grandson an aeroplane high up in the sky, and he said, "Can you see that aeroplane?" He says, "Well, no, Grandpa." He says, "I can see the vapor trail." So you've got to be really careful. They know an awful lot about this. We need more renewable sources of energy. That's replenished or renewed, like the sun or the wind, the sun and the rain. I'll just show an examples. There's wind turbines, land and sea, and they're not small, they're enormous. Some people don't like them. I personally think the larger ones move nice and slowly and they're really graceful. And you may not know about some of the things that go on at sea. I mean, there used to be ships with sails, but this particular one, transporting Airbus parts around the world, it's a relatively cheap sail, and it can be 45 degrees to either side, and the ship can stay on course. And it doesn't pull the ship along completely, but it saves, on this occasion, in 2021, £837,000 in fuel, with 22 prices and 23 prices, that'll be a lot more. And also about 8,000 metric tons a year of CO2 going up into the atmosphere. So there are things being done, and it's nice to see things like this. The sun, obviously, it's better in hotter countries, but it's still a possibility here. And you still see, as you're driving along, you'll see in the fields, you'll see solar panels. If you happen to have a desert, well, that makes a massive difference. And the amount of energy that they get from the sun in Saudi Arabia and what have you, well, that just about covers everything. It's a wee bit different here. We've got the possibility, of course, to put it on our houses. And these days, the solar panels they're much improved in terms of their efficiency, and that they can be black, and they often go onto a roof first, and the tiles butt up to them, and all the wiring in a new house, it's done. So it's not, it's relatively cheap and cost effective. In fact, you can even have the whole roof as solar panels. So, okay, for the home, excellent for new build, but it is more of a challenge for older property, and it's not always possible. For example, if you've got a thatched cottage, that's not really on, and if it's a listed building. And also it's harder for the older type of property, because you do need good insulation. You're probably putting about a 20th of the heat in, and it mustn't be let out for it to be effective. So, in terms of the UK electricity supply, what's happening right now, literally right now? Well, don't do it now, but if you were to go onto your phone or the computer and you type in GridWatch UK, it actually tells you what's going on right now. And for example, nuclear, it's usually fairly steady. The gas turbines are the fill-in. These are combined cycle gas turbines, so that the waste heat is also sent off to make steam and then make more electricity. So that they're quite efficient. And the great thing is they're variable. Whereas wind and solar, these are the ones here, it depends. That solar's not very good at night. And of course, the wind varies day to day. But on a windy, sunny day, 60% of our UK energy can be supplied by wind and solar. And that's 60% of about 33 gigawatts. And the gas turbines just simply back off. And I'm hoping in due course that we might see more high-level hydro, which could also do the same job. And thus, again, less emissions to atmosphere. So that's GridWatch UK. Afterwards, if you type it in, you'll be able to see. And it also tells you what we're doing with other countries, electricity being sent overseas or brought in from overseas. So what can we do as individuals? All right, well, if you've got a fairly well insulated house, you can take heat from the surrounding air. And this looks like an air conditioning unit on the outside of the house. And one of electricity in is 3 of heat out. So it really is quite efficient. Another alternative, it might be water from a well, anything, in fact, underground. So you're taking heat from underground, admittedly also with a river. But this shows you here, if you've got a suitable field, some do, lay pipes and quite simply fill it in, you can't see it, and that heat can then heat the house. So that's ground source heating. If you're going to buy a new log burner, well, you could spend a lot of money actually. You could spend 1,140 for a DEFRA approved. But the modern log burners, they have a system of more air going in at the back. So the gases that are not burnt, they then are burnt. So when you look at your log burner, the whole of the whole face here is full of flame. And these can be 83% efficient, burn just about everything, and there's hardly any ash. Air fryer chips, well, they're quick and easy and taste delicious. And better still, they're much better for you. so my wife says, anyway, than deep fried chips. And it uses far less electricity than a conventional oven. Use water off the roof. I mean, producing and pumping clean water to houses uses a lot of energy. And rainwater from the roof into a water butt saves on the water bill, good for the garden and household plants, no chemicals. And why use drinking water for the first wash of the car? Just something to think about. Upcycling. Reuse something that, you know, it's being thrown out. You need do-it-yourself skills, but it can save an awful lot of money, especially when it comes to furniture. Recycle, of course, most people do. And now plastic wrappings, Marks and Spencer's, Aldi, etc., you can actually take them and they then again get recycled. So moving on to what we can do as clubs working together and with other interest groups. In fact, increase activities that integrate communities and the environment, as Mary's been telling us about. We've produced a 3-page document with help from 27 of our 62 Rotary clubs in District 110. And this now, I'm hoping it'll last for another month, shall we say, then we'll update it again. But it's intended to simply be a summary of the various activities, and then words in blue are links, and they just simply take you off to a lot more information. I won't go into detail, but I'll just show you a few pictures. Beekeeping, for example, strengthens the healthy bee gene pool, pollinates plants, and produces honey. And good, hangs on for youngsters. In fact, my 5-year-old grandson, they've been doing this sort of thing, and they have all the kit. Planting trees, of course, Rotary do that. Trees produce oxygen. The leaves absorb a harmful carbon dioxide, and with photosynthesis and the use of energy from the sun, converts this into chemical compounds such as sugars that feed the tree. A byproduct of that chemical is oxygen. So there are some actually very good sources for trees, as you probably know. Also, organised litter picking that makes the subject area look better, removes objects that are harmful to animals and humans, and get the youngsters involved. They love it. Nesting boxes. There's quite a few people who make nesting boxes, and I've seen these at Rotary District events. Promotion of homegrown food that's fresher, healthier, tastes better compared to being transported from afar, with associated transport costs and high CO2. There was one example of something that came from Singapore. It was packed in Ireland and then shipped over here. It's, you know, you think, no, let's do it locally. Incredible, edible. Care of tidal marches, mostly working with other groups, but these also absorb a tremendous amount of CO2, and indirectly, they're all part of the food chain. 2 to 4 times more carbon absorption, actually, or sequestration, than those observed in mature tropical forests. Just have a drink, I'm losing my voice. Thank you. So working in particular with other interest groups, and all of these are potential young Rotarians, and the general objective is just to work with others and younger groups so that they eventually find out what Rotary is all about and then do it in their own way probably, but at least become Rotarians. And Mary mentioned Santa's sleigh. We're getting a bit old now for running up and down garden paths, so we're hoping that these same people are going to help us with Santa's sleigh. Shortly to be announced, I'm hoping to get a group of youngsters to assist reduce the amount of river pollution, which is actually happening in a lot of our rivers, with sampling whilst out on walking near rivers in our district, for the Loon Rivers Trust and other similar river groups, because these groups don't really have enough finance to pay people to go out taking the samples, but they need those regular samples to actually get results and see where contamination is coming from. And that's it, in 14 and a half minutes, Mary. And I'll hand back to you. And I better stop screen sharing, hadn't I? There we are.
Goodness me, how do I follow that? That's incredible. Thank you so much, John. And thank you so much, Mary. Just before we go to questions, crikey, I've got this incredible mind map in front of me now. You two are amazing. So we started with the fostering harmony in our community and reminded of the vision statement, together people create change. Through that, we looked at our resilience and how we create hope in the world and respond to community needs. We linked the community needs to our environmental needs and talked about recycling, solar panels, which interestingly, John, I've just bought a new house, or I bought one in December, and was baffled why it didn't have solar panels on the roof. But hey ho, I think.
I say that it's happening in Wales and Scotland and not in England, and I don't know why.
I know. When I travel up to the northeast to see family, there are some at Blubber houses where the solar panels are embedded in the roof, and it's fantastic. So yeah, we looked at all the different ways, and maybe we can look at our projects through those environmental eyes. Mary talked us through all the community needs and looking at the needs through themes and areas of focus and how they can create projects. The projects obviously have an impact, and through our public image and our awareness and storytelling, we create interest, we create membership, we create fellowship and partnerships, and we're back to our vision statement of together we create change. So goodness me, what an incredible journey the two of you have taken us on. That is quite fantastic. And I will end though, because Mary, it was just brilliant. There's a but to all this, isn't there? We like change, but we need to make sure that that change is necessary, because babies grow. I must remember that. Herbert on Saturday taught me that a picture is worth 1,000 words, but three pictures don't give me 3,000 words. And Mary's taught me that babies grow. So those are my takeaways. So Malcolm, I'm going to come to yourself and just say, are there any questions for either John or for Mary?
Yeah, we've got three here. One from Heather Whittam. What is a kindness card?
Right, that can you hear? Is that okay? Yeah. Rotary produced some cards, little cards that we could all have at a choir, and on those cards it tells you about I think there's 7 or 8 points. I haven't got mine in front of me, but it tells you about how you should relate to each other.
Wow. Do we know where we can get them from, Mary? Because it is incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure that all the DGs in Cassia were given them. And if they haven't, they have access to them. And then the idea is that every Rotarian carries one. It's a bit like modernising the 4-way test.
Brilliant. Well, Malcolm, I'm going to take that as my my action to catch up with Kath and see if we can find some of these. And it was a cracking question that Heather had written it down. Malcolm, question number 2.
From Gil Riley, have you had any success with the red water in the harbour?
No, nobody knows where it's coming. For those that don't know, Whitehaven Harbour, as water's turned red, and they're not awfully sure what's polluting it. Apparently, this is not the first time this has happened, but it's got a bit political because there's those that are saying it's the stuff going on for the proposed coal mine, and then other states for other things, but nobody really knows. But they're all doing lots of studies. But it clashes a bit with our purple lamppost, so I have to say.
Yeah. One from Ian McTurk. How did you ascertain the number of organisations in your area which allow volunteering days?
Right. Well, every single contract that is given for in the supply chain for the nuclear industry has social responsibility days built into that contract. As I understand, BAE Systems has in theirs and other. I think it's anything with employees over 100 or 150 that have contracts have social responsibility days in them. And then we found out how many people were employed. Obviously, it can only be a ballpark figure, but if they're all allowed 1 day each, and things like, I already knew from my time with Age UK, I mean, we used to use the social responsibility days from the local banks. And they have, every bank employee has a day, as a minimum of a day. And we used to use those for all our support to auditing our small clubs and groups and things. So I think it's just about thinking about it. But to give you some idea, we've got about 4 different companies who've got all the lifting gear. So we're going to do these cannons, but we need lifting gear, we need metal workers, we need carpenters, as well as painters. Once they've been lifted and repaired, we can paint them, but we can't do the rest of it. So that's really good, because they're allowing the social responsibility days to actually drive the lifting machine and so on. So this is really an untapped resource that we'd never really thought about.
And the next one, it's more of some clarification from DG Kath. I think she's referring to the card we're talking about, and she says it's the value and behaviours card.
Yeah.
And another comment from Julia Mather. Very interesting and informative presentations. Thank you. Lots to think about.
Yeah. And of course, Julia's club does the Daffodil Week, which we've just had down the centre of Cockermouth. And the examples of recycling to make daffodils are just out of this world. And that's a really good example of, although the daffodils, well, there are some planted, but there's various materials. It's a really good example of making a community aware of Rotary, but also because it involves other things than just decorating the town, brings the town together, and a town which is used to coming together for emergencies. So it kind of keeps that togetherness about. So great project.
Absolutely. And the other thing that the environmental guide, John, I thought is absolutely brilliant. And it would be, with my Rota Kids lead hat on, it would be good to take it into the Rota Kids to see if they could kind of write it from their perspective of the kind of things, and then share that with through Anthony with the other Rota Kids, so that we've got that kind of from a primary education, because like you say, they're an awful lot cleverer than we are with this environmental, some of the things that they talk to us about, and you kind of do that, oh yeah, and I think, gosh, I must go away and have a look at that, or they tell you about things and it's just unbelievable. So I do think from a
future, isn't it, really?
From a Rota Kids, it would be really good to do that. So Malcolm, any more questions? Lovely. Right, well, if there are no more questions, like I said, gosh, if I could show you the mind map that started with Together People Create Change and finished with Together, and between the two of you, you've taken us round the world in a number of different themes, adventures, areas of focus, and lots of environment things to think about. So I really do thank you both very much indeed for your support, and hopefully across the year we'll have some workshops in relation to a few things that we've done. So I will just ask you if you'll both switch your cameras and your mics off for a minute. And before everybody disappears, I do have one more special guest that I just want to introduce to you tonight. By the power of magic, Malcolm, have we got our final special guest?
Hopefully on his way.
Good. John and Mary, would you be able to switch your cameras off? Sorry. Thanks, Brill. And just mute yourselves, then we don't get any feedback. That says thanks. So whilst we're just waiting for our special guest to arrive, I just want to remind you of tomorrow night. Same time tomorrow night. It's I am joined by Peter Brooks, and for those that joined on Saturday and met Helen Ashton, Helen has sent us a video because she's unavailable. And Peter and I will be launching my focus for the year, which will be dementia awareness, our focus on how we support and help those both with dementia and those caring for those with dementia to live life to the best of their abilities. And I'm really excited to say that we are going to be joined by a Dementia UK rep who will be supporting us all on our journey through learning more about dementia. And what I want to do is just thank those of you who've already sent me an email and told me some of the stories of the caring, of the dementia cafes, and that have already given your support in the year ahead. So I am eternally grateful for that, and hopefully together we can share our knowledge and our awareness and make our district more dementia friendly. Have we found him, Malcolm?
I think there must be some technical difficulty.
Cool. Can we bring him on with sound or not?
No.
Oh no. So right. What I wanted to do is introduce John McGill. John really kindly, and it was my my mistake. I'd got John and Les Hardy booked in for yesterday, and then was kindly reminded that it was a bank holiday yesterday, so I do apologise. So John and Les have kindly put their district assembly day back to the 15th of May, and they're going to talk us through the fantastic work that Foundation does, and hopefully debunk a few myths and help us learn more about Foundation, what it is, what it does, and how through our support we can continue to create hope in the world. Go on.
Oh, sorry, he's trying to get back in. Can you just get?
Do you want me to just? Am I just padding, Malcolm?
Yeah, you are.
If you're not careful, I'll sing, and then we'll lose everybody. So yes, it's one of the important areas. Having been to International Assembly in America and listened to some of the young people that stood on the stage and told their life story about how they became involved with Rotary through the Foundation, and how the Foundation supported them with their lives, with some incredible assistance. It tells us, here he is, look, live from it just I came back and spoke to Les and spoke to John and said, you know, sometimes we get a little bit muddled with the complexities of the Rotary Foundation. So without further ado, John, I'm going to be quiet for now, and I'm just going to let you take centre stage. So I'll just turn my mic off, and I'll let you talk to us about our the 15th of May and what we can expect.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed the second evening of this year's District Assembly. I certainly did. Mary and John has given us a lot to think about. I'd like to take a couple of minutes of your time to give you a taste of part 4 of the District Assembly, which is at 6:30 p.m. on Monday the 15th of May, and is all about the Rotary Foundation. That's our foundation. I will be joined on the 15th of May, technology permitting, by Les Hardy, who, in addition to being a member of the District Foundation team, is a chair of the Accrington Rotary Club Foundation team. The Rotary Foundation is recognised as one of the top 5 charities in the world. And as far as I know, it's the only one that gives you money back to plough into even more projects. Now, as you know, projects attract interest. So, as with the other presentations, Les and I are looking to use the storytelling format to demonstrate just what the Foundation actually does, to deal with and hopefully dispel some of those myths. I look forward to the coming new Rotary year. Can I also take this opportunity to quickly remind everybody about the upcoming 2 Foundation Appreciation Lunches. The 2 we had last year were very successful, with some members attending both events. The first is on Saturday the 20th of May at the Flower Bowl, Garstang, where there'll be a 2-course meal, lunch worth £17. And the second on Saturday the 27th of May at Hundy Manor Country House at Windscales, Workington, where again there'll be a 2-course lunch for £15. I've already circulated the booking form. If anyone needs one, you can contact me via the DMS at Furness Peninsula Rotary, Closing date for both events is Wednesday the 10th of May. Les and I are looking forward to seeing you all on Monday the 15th of February. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, and I'm so glad that we got to connect up with you, John. That's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, can't wait to learn a bit more about the foundation and listen to those stories. So thank you very much indeed. I've done well. I've kept us on track. Thank you to Mary. Thank you to John, and thank you to John McGill Foundation. And hopefully I'll see you all again tomorrow night when we will talk all things dementia. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Take care.